Think about the last time you tried to explain yourself, not casually, but seriously. You slowed down your voice. You chose your words carefully. You tried to be fair, calm, reasonable. You thought, if I can just explain this clearly enough, they'll understand, but they didn't. Instead, they twisted your words. They interrupted. They got louder. And somehow, you walked away feeling worse than when it started. Not because you were wrong, but because they were never trying to understand you in the first place. Here's the truth most people realize too late. You're not exhausted because people are difficult. You're exhausted because you keep trying to explain yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. And later that night, you're lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. I should have said this. No, I should have said that instead. You rebuild the conversation in your mind, stronger, sharper, more convincing. You imagine the version of you that finally says the perfect thing, the thing that makes them pause, soften, apologize. But that version of the conversation never actually happens, because the real conversation was never about truth. And here's the part that feels the most confusing. You feel drained, heavy, almost hollow, and they seem energized. Like something in that interaction gave them exactly what they needed. That's when you have to ask yourself, was this really a conversation, or was it something else entirely? Some people don't communicate to connect with you. They communicate to extract from you your attention, your emotional reactions, your need to be understood. Psychology calls them emotional vampires, not because they're evil, but because they survive on your emotional energy. And once you see it, you start to recognize the pattern. Here are 3 signs you're dealing with one. First, they twist your words. No matter how clear you are, they find a way to distort it. Second, nothing ever gets resolved. You have the same argument over and over again, just with different details. Third, they escalate when you stay calm. The calmer you become, the more intense they get. If that feels familiar, this is not miscommunication. This is a system. Most of us were raised to believe that better communication fixes everything. Be more patient. Be more understanding. Explain yourself clearly. And those things work with healthy people. But with someone who feeds on emotional reactions, your empathy doesn't calm them. It feeds them. Your explanations don't resolve the issue. They give them more material to pull you deeper into the cycle. So the real problem isn't that you're bad at explaining. The real problem is you're trying to win a game that was never designed to be won. Because the goal was never truth. The goal was your reaction. This is where a radical shift happens. In psychology, there is a method called the gray rock method, and it goes against everything you've been taught. You don't argue. You don't defend. You don't try to be understood. You become uninteresting, emotionally neutral, predictable, flat, like a gray rock. This is not passive aggression. You're not ignoring them to punish them. You're not withdrawing to prove a point. You are simply refusing to participate in a system that drains you. Let's bring this into real life. Someone says, you never care about anyone but yourself. Your instinct is to defend, to list everything you've done, to prove them wrong. But watch what happens when you stop playing that role. Instead, you say, I understand you feel that way. And then, nothing. Someone says, you're always so difficult. Instead of reacting, okay. Someone says, this is why nobody likes working with you. Instead of arguing, that's your opinion. No emotional spike, no long explanation, no defense. Because every time you react, you are paying them. And for the first time, you are choosing not to pay. If you're honest, part of what keeps you trapped here is not just them. It's your need to be seen correctly, to be understood, to be validated. You want them to say, you're right, I was wrong, I'm sorry. But when you depend on someone like that for validation, you give them control over your peace. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus understood this thousands of years ago. He said, it's not what happens to you, but how you interpret it. Your suffering doesn't come from what they say. It comes from your belief that they should see you differently. And when you release that, something inside you becomes untouchable. But here's the part that most people are not prepared for. When you stop reacting, they will get worse, not better. They may raise their voice, push harder, create bigger problems. This is called an extinction burst. It's what happens when a behavior stops working, and the person tries everything to make it work again. This is where most people give up. They think, it's not working, but in reality, it's working perfectly. If you're using this method hoping they will finally respect you, you're still playing the same game, because you're still trying to control their perception. And that is the one thing you will never control. They may call you cold. They may say you've changed. They may tell others that you're distant or cruel. Let them, because for the first time, you are no longer abandoning yourself just to be understood. At first, the silence feels uncomfortable, even lonely, because you're not used to it. You're used to the noise, the tension, the constant need to defend yourself. But slowly, your mind gets quieter. You stop replaying conversations. You stop preparing arguments for battles that haven't happened yet. And for the first time in a long time, you feel still. Imagine a stone resting in the middle of a rushing river. The water crashes against it, pushes, swirls, demands movement. But the stone doesn't argue with the current. It doesn't try to control the river. It simply remains. And eventually, the river moves on. So ask yourself this: who in your life is still waiting for you to explain yourself? And what would happen if tomorrow you simply stopped? Tell me, what's something someone says to you that instantly drains your energy? And have you ever tried just not responding?